we'll start with the call of the roll, please.
Mr. Bacon?
Here.
Mr. Griffith? Mr. Maholson?
Here.
Ms. Clevenger? Here. Mr. Zollinger?
Here. Okay, a quorum is present of the board. 4 of the 5 members are present. I will point out, and I should have pointed this out in previous meetings, and it's a habit I've gotten myself into now, just so you know, it takes 3 of us to approve a variance, and that's in the majority of the board, even though there's 5 of us. So you're going to need 3 out of 4 votes at least to get any variance approved from the board this evening. With that, the next item is the approval of the minutes of the August 28th, 2018 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Go ahead and call the roll, please.
Mr. Bacon?
Yes.
Mr. Maholson?
Yes.
Ms. Clevenger?
Abstain.
Mr. Zollinger?
Yes. Okay, we're going to move to the business portion, and the agenda has the application for Shiloh Run and the Alexandria Parkway going first, but we're going to go out of order this evening because I anticipate the other item is going to not take as much time, and I'd like to have that matter taken care of first. So why don't we call the item B in the business portion of the agenda first.
Application number ZBOA 2018-23, 550 North Main Street, Agile Sign and Lighting Maintenance, Inc. and GS Shira Company, LLC. They are requesting a variance for a replacement of changeable copy sign panel to an electronic changeable copy sign panel. The variance is necessitated by section 1151.07B2.
Okay, one thing I forgot. We have a court reporter that's taking down everything we're saying this evening. So it's important if you get up and speak that if you respond to any of our questions, you do so verbally. Avoid shaking the head, nodding, those sorts of things. Makes the court reporter's job a lot easier. Also, this is a judicial-like proceeding, so anyone who does speak will need to be put under oath. Again, this isn't meant to scare anybody or intimidate anybody. It's just that we have a record that we have to make. What we decide tonight can be appealed, where someone in a robe might decide that we did or did not do our job right. So we would like, if you do plan, even if you think or may not, if you think you're going to speak tonight, if you could please stand and raise your right hand, and the court reporter will swear you in.
Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
And if you do, thank you. And if you do get up and speak, make sure you state your name and your address for the record beforehand. So, with regard to the application on 550 North Main, we'll first hear from anyone who would like to speak in favor of this variance application. So, go ahead and come forward. Yes, sir. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and state your name into the microphone there. And
Lou Belknap at Agile Sign at 35280. Lou Belknap, B-E-L-K-N-A-P, at Agile Sign at 35280 Lakeland Boulevard, East Lake, Ohio. And that's 44095. We're applying for, basically it's a face change on I believe John had said it was a non-conforming sign, so that's what we're asking for. The sign itself already has an illuminated cabinet, which they have not used because they didn't want to put the funds into it to repair the signs, knowing down the road they were going to do a digital readout for their pricing. But the sign cabinet, which is exposed here in the red, that actually is an illuminated cabinet. And I went out and verified that because there was a concern whether or not it was illuminated, and it is wired and it does have lamps in it. They just chose not to turn it on.
it's illuminated now, isn't it? I drove by it on the way here.
It does illuminate, but it needs repaired. They didn't want to put the money into repairing it because they wanted to change it out to the digital. Okay. So we went out and serviced it, and they said, well, I'd rather not put the money into it. because they're upgrading to the digital pricer. And it fits into the same cabinet. There's no size change of the cabinet at all. It's made to fit right into the same configuration. So that's what our request is for. So there's already electric there, and it can control, the pricing will be controlled from within instead of going out and doing manual pricings.
And you're just changing that one rectangular sign where it shows
That is
the price
correct.
per gallon?
Just the one right there that says regular.
Okay.
Mhm.
And give me like an idea, like electronically, what do you have to do to reconfigure the sign, to make it digital? What do you
They actually make, the industry makes real shallow LED inserts that fit into a whole panel. Like all these gas stations have a standard pricer, so they just make a whole new face with that insert in it, and we take the old face out, put the whole new face in, and it's digitally printed from inside. It's digitally controlled from inside the gas station.
Okay.
So it's a wireless system as far as communication.
Is that part of the sign panel, the digital part?
It's a whole new panel, so it
Comes
fits
in
right
one,
into
one assembly, or?
one assembly. Mhm. They're back to back because it's two-sided. The cabinet itself is, I think, already 6 inches deep. So there's like 2-inch modules that go on the back of the pricer. So they're back to back, and there's plenty of space yet in between them. We just got the internals out. No lamps, no ballast. It's just LED system.
All right. Any other questions?
It fits within the existing frame.
It is an existing sign. Mhm. That's what the photo
Same
was.
size it is now.
I'm sorry?
Same size it is now.
Exactly. They literally just take the old face out and put a new face in with a digital panel on it.
Any other questions? Anything else, sir?
That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else would like to speak regarding this application? Anyone? Okay, I'm not even sure the variance is necessary here. I guess you could say that this is more than just a panel replacement because you're dealing with electronics, but under 1151.162B, when space is reoccupied by a similar use in the new occupant, sir, I'm sorry, you did just buy this property, right? This Sunoco station?
I can't answer that. I don't know for a fact how long they've had it. John may know.
But when did you occupy that premises?
I'm not the owner.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
the sign company, so I don't know the answer to that.
About 6 months ago, they purchased and remodeled.
Okay.
I would like to also say, Mr. Chairman, that the sign is sitting inside the right-of-way by 30 inches. So it makes it even more of a non-conformity.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you. I understand that, but I'm not sure, and maybe somebody else has other thoughts in response to what I'm going to say, but 1151.162 says, when the space is reoccupied by a similar use and the new occupant requires no external building or site renovation, the non-conforming sign can be altered or modified or reconstructed. And it doesn't even talk about facing of the panel in that provision. And then under C, we have to decide whether this is changing more than just the panel. I don't think it is, based on the testimony I've heard. So even though it's non-conforming, I don't know that the variance, I'm not even sure the variance is necessary here. I'm going to give it some more thought, if anybody else has any more thoughts about it in response to what I've said.
Mr. Zahler, were you going to make other comments?
Yeah. Does anybody have any more questions of the applicant before we go ahead?
So, but the sign is non-conforming, but wasn't it grandfathered in because it was already there when the ordinances were passed that make it non-conforming, correct?
Right, and
So-
yeah, if he was to do something like change the framing of the sign, we
Right.
would we could make him say, no, he's got to be conforming,
Right.
but or get a variance. And here he's not changing the framing,
Correct.
so,
He's fitting a new frame, the old frame. Basically.
yeah. Sir?
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. I'm going to differ with you on the requirement for variance because you're changing the whole design and illumination of the sign. These are starting to crop up all over everywhere. What disturbs me about these electronic signs, I've seen many of them that are so bright, the whole area within hundreds of feet is just illuminated. It's like illuminating a ball field almost. I don't know what our code says regarding these. I'd like to see something, if we don't already have it, to regulate when they're illuminated. Is there a reason to have these signs illuminated when the business isn't even operating all night long, flashing, and many of them are so bright and, you know, like brilliantly change colors and the intensity changes. It's actually distracting. There's one over there, you get off of 77 and you're right there at 62 and, or Fulton. You're waiting for the light. It is so bright. I mean, especially when maybe you have wet conditions, the reflection of that highly illuminated lighting. I don't like these, and certainly I don't know if there's a way of controlling the intensity that you can just dial up or dial down. Is that possible?
Well, if it's electronic, if it's a full electronic sign, yes, they are.
There should be some kind of controls that we limit the intensity of the illumination so they're not blinding traffic, drivers. At any rate, granted it's sitting in the same spot, in the same fixture, but the character, by switching to these high-intensity LEDs or whatever they are, requires some review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I still ask a question of the applicant?
Sure.
I have a question for the applicant, if you come back up to the podium, please. It's my general observation that when the gas station is not open during business hours or outside of business hours, that the electronic signs are turned off at gas stations.
Well, I mean,
You're not the owner, I know. But
I mean, I don't know if that's on a time clock or anything, but I mean, any sign can be put on a timer. So I mean, it's a matter of will the applicant, will the owner want to turn it off at night? I can't answer that.
Doesn't make sense to advertise the price of gas when there's no one
Yeah,
in the store.
it can be done. I won't say they'll do it, but it can be done.
Okay.
I mean, it's illuminated at night right now the way it is, in the middle of the night.
Okay. Yeah, see,
Early morning.
yeah, I'm not
It's
aware
not
of that.
open.
So
But the sign itself, you don't have pictures of the sign, do you, of what you're gonna put in there?
that's what's on this drawing.
Oh, wait.
I mean, do you not have this drawing?
We
It
We
was
have
in
that.
my packet.
That's
I have
the
a question.
existing.
How, wasn't the other sign illuminated?
Yes.
And how long was it at that business?
Well, I don't know how long.
And were there complaints from neighbors or passersby?
Yeah, the sign's been there for a long time. I like John had said, I think
So,
they just
yeah,
acquired it 6 months ago or whatever. Yeah, and that's kind of what it looks like. It's been there for a long time.
And actually what's illuminated is just the price?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's just a manual letter. You gotta go out there and
So-
change it manually.
Right. Yeah.
So it looks like,
Illumination-wise, it would be almost identical to what you have.
yeah, just so the record, I don't know if we can introduce this into the record, but it's basically same rectangular red background except for the one area where the price per gallon would be. So the only lighting would, the only digital lettering is the price.
That is correct.
Not the whole sign like
That
you
is correct.
see on other parts.
It's
of
just the
main.
digital pricer.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions?
Just an observation, Mr. President. There is a section regarding the signs, specifically on illumination. It's 115113K. Title is illumination. And it states that the signs will be required to comply with the lighting ordinance that we have in 115511 as far as intensity and so forth. And it points out specifically that there's not permitted to be any flashing, moving, intermittent lighting, including beacon lights, and except for permitted time, temperature, and message signs. Shall not be lighted to obstruct traffic control or any other public informational signs. So there is ordinance in effect, 115113K, and it points to 115511. So even if this board would approve it and the sign is put in with the lights, if the lights are contrary to the outdoor lighting regulation, then they would have to be adjusted so they would be in compliance.
Yeah, you understand, like, we could grant a variance for you, or you're the owner, but if the lighting is too bright, and I don't know that it would be, based on what you're showing me.
Correct.
It's not flashing. You know, they could still run into a problem if somebody, if it doesn't comply with 1155.
I don't see it being an issue, but, I mean, if he's got to meet the code,
Yeah.
you know, that would be the owner's obligation to you.
Right. So I don't think we even need to address that. And if we granted a variance, it would just be a separate issue for.
And just so you know, that it doesn't flash and it doesn't move other than a price change. It's not a message board.
Yes.
It's strictly numerals.
Okay.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, the only conformance would be to any level of acceptable foot candles at a certain distance from the sign itself.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Also, there was requirements for site renovations for this project. He had gone to the planning commission for a complete revamp of the site.
Okay.
Just to let you, that's part of the thing that you had read about it. There's a site renovation that an occupant can
Okay.
use, just to let you know that he had gone to planning and it was a renovation of a site plan, of the site, excuse me.
All right. Well, my thinking is, does anybody else want to speak in regard to this application? My thinking is they're just replacing a panel, and a panel can include electrical components. But that being said, to make things right here, I'm going to say I'm in favor of granting a variance based upon the factors of an area variance, that the property, this will yield a reasonable return and be beneficial use of the property without it, that there are special conditions. They bought the property, the sign was already there like that. They're not looking to change it substantially. It's a minimum necessary. This sign is not that invasive. It's not a big giant flashing sign that you do see in other parts of Main Street, in other areas. It's basically the same sign with the one area where the price is going to be digital. The ordinance does not speak to digital itself. It does talk about illumination, as the law director pointed out. If council wants to take that up, I think it's probably not a bad idea, but that's not what we're here to decide today. I don't think it changes the essential character of the neighborhood. I don't think it adversely affects delivery of governmental services, and the condition didn't exist as a result of the current owner, and the property's predicament feasibly cannot be obviated through some other something other than a variance. It would make it easier to change the price by doing it from inside and outside with the giant thing that you pull it off. So I'm in favor of granting the variance, and those are the reasons why. Anybody else?
I move we grant the variance.
If there's no other discussion, I'll take a second.
Second?
Okay, let's call the roll, please. And then a yes vote will mean is in favor of the variance, and a no vote is not in favor.
Mr. Mr. Bacon?
Yes.
Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Ms. Clevenger?
Yes.
Mr. Zollinger?
Yes. Okay, the variance has been granted. Thank you, sir. Okay, we will move on to the item A of the agenda.
Application number ZBOA 2018-18, Shiloh Run Southeast and Alexandria Parkway Southeast. Applicant AMC Land Company is requesting a variance to construct 2 permanent dead-end streets longer than 600 feet on the following streets. Shiloh Run Southeast, 1,780 feet in length from the intersection of Shiloh Run Southeast and Halifax Way Southeast to the proposed cul-de-sac of Shiloh Run Southeast, and 2 Alexandria Parkway Southeast, 1,625 feet in length from the intersection of Alexandria Parkway Southeast and Halifax Way Southeast to the proposed cul-de-sac of Alexandria Parkway Southeast.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant can step forward and go ahead and give your name and address for the record. And then I have something I need to address.
Good evening, my name is Brent Artman. I represent the landowner, the AMC Land Company. My company is Artman Engineering. It is located at 13710 Cleveland Avenue Northwest in Uniontown.
Okay, thank you, sir. One issue, preliminary issue we have to address here is we heard a request for this variance in our May meeting, and it was denied. May was 4 months ago, and under 1179.08 of the city's code, if we deny an appeal, we need not rehear the application within 6 months unless new evidence is submitted. What I've been given so far is identical to what was submitted to us in May for this variance. So do you have new evidence? Are you looking to do something different here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead and explain. Because what we as a board are going to need to do is we're going to have to vote on whether we want to hear this right now.
Some of the concern in the last meeting was the fact that the cul-de-sacs would not be able to accommodate the turning movements of a fire apparatus vehicle. We've increased all those to meet the National Fire Protection Association. We've increased the diameter of those. Now the radius of that cul-de-sac will be 50 foot of pavement to be able to accommodate those vehicles.
The radius will be 50 feet?
Yeah, well, the diameter of the right-of-way, or I'm sorry, the radius of the right-of-way is 60, therefore the pavement would be 50, providing a 100-foot diameter turnaround.
Okay, I thought the city code was 50. Isn't that right?
It was 50 to the right-of-way. We've increased that to 60.
Okay, you're going to increase it to 60.
We're providing an additional 10 feet.
So in May, you only requested 50 feet, 50-foot radius.
Yes. And one of the major concerns was the fire trucks turning around in that cul-de-sac.
Okay. And we have some other evidence from a new letter from the fire chief dated August 24th, 2018, and some run data. Was that provided to you before the meeting?
Yesterday.
Okay. Okay, is there any other new evidence, or is that the only thing that's different from the May application?
It's the only thing different from the May application.
Okay, we as a board need to decide whether we want to rehear this right now, whether that constitutes new evidence. you know, we have a 6-month rule. It's important that our rules be followed and complied with. You know, once we start giving exceptions to these rules for not a good reason, the rules tend to vanish. So we need to decide whether this is a substantial enough reason to rehear this now. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts about that.
One of the considerations is the time frame when they were here last. That's passed, and when they'll be back again, and likely somewhat of a brief period of time, they'll simply be back again, and you have the opportunity this evening. I think everyone's prepared for where they're going, that perhaps to resolve it now versus another 30 days, 60 days or so.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of people here, and I kind of feel the same way. We're going to be back here again, and we do have new evidence from the chief, and it's significant evidence, in my opinion. That's not, the ordinance doesn't say the new evidence has to come from the applicant.
Correct.
So I think there's adequate grounds to go ahead and rehear this now. Anybody else have any other thoughts?
I agree.
Does the applicant want the opportunity to table this based on resubmitting the variance request with what is described in this letter? It's your opportunity. It's up to you.
First off, I question the fact why we're even revisiting the connection to Grassmere. I'm questioning why we are revisiting that. We already received the variance not to connect to Grassmere. We are here this evening to talk about the dead-end streets and the lengths of those streets, not necessarily connecting to Grassmere.
Why don't we wait on, let's wait on, that's going to the merits of the application. So why don't we wait on talking about that and tabling and all that stuff until we decide whether we want to hear this, because we're getting into the merits a little bit right now. And I want to make sure, we as a board need to make sure we want to move forward with this.
The radius of the cul-de-sacs, was that a significant reason to deny the request the last time? No? Okay. I just thought that would be
It was the
considered.
length of the cul-de-sacs
Right.
in being approximately almost 3 times what the ordinance allows.
Okay.
So,
That doesn't change.
so look, all we need to decide now is whether we have new evidence, and we want to go ahead and rehear this, and then we can get into everything else. So, does anybody have anything they want to say about the new evidence? Otherwise, we should vote one way or the other on whether we want to rehear this. I'll entertain a motion one way or the other.
Clint, unless they significantly amend the proposal, nothing's going to change.
Well, they've amended the proposal.
I don't mean by a couple feet.
No, listen, we'll get into that in a second. What I'm trying to, we just need to move past whether we want to rehear this. Did they submit new evidence? I'm saying, is new evidence submitted? My position is there is new evidence. So let's go ahead and hear the merits and get into all this. So we just need a motion to go ahead and proceed and hear the merits of this
Also
application. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll call the roll.
Mr. Bacon?
Yes.
Mr. Mahalson?
No.
Ms. Clevenger?
Yes.
Mr. Zollinger?
Yes. Okay. So it sounds though, other than the 50-foot radius, you're not asking for anything different than what you asked for in May.
No, sir.
Okay. Go ahead. Is there anything else you want to add at this point? No. I'm sure we'll have some questions.
Well, basically, I mean, we're here to, obviously, as you said, to get variances for the 2 permanent dead-end streets being longer than 600 feet. As was stated, Shiloh Run is going to approximately be 1,780 feet in length, and Alexandria would be 625 feet in length. They both presently exist in the manner that in that manner now, except for they do not have cul-de-sac turnarounds. We are extending Shiloh 187 feet of that 1,780 feet, and we're extending Alexandria Parkway approximately 400 feet of the 1,625 feet. So right now, they exist with those lengths in place. And as a matter of fact, there are some cul-de-sacs in there that exist now that would have a greater length, particularly in the last phase. They're proposing the two cul-de-sac streets, as we had talked about before, to provide a larger estate lots within the development that would provide more of a private setting for the homes, allow more buffering to the adjacent residents and between the new homes. It would result in a decrease of traffic, obviously, on these streets and make for a safer overall environment. The reduced amount of roadway and larger estate lots also result in a significant decrease in stormwater runoff from this portion of the development. The increased green space will allow for more infiltration of stormwater and generate less runoff to minimize the impact of the development on any of the flooding problems that may exist downstream, as we had heard about in past meetings. The connection of Shiloh Run and Alexandria Parkway will provide for more density and smaller lots within the subdivision. That increased density, increased roadway, and smaller lots will allow for less stormwater infiltration, more stormwater runoff. The decreased density and larger estate lots created by the cul-de-sac design will result in increased land values. We feel that the decreased lot sizes and bringing the road all the way through would result in decreased lot sizes and change the existing character of the neighborhood, basically with lesser lot values or lesser home values within that portion of the development. In addition, as I'd stated before, both cul-de-sacs will have a minimum radius of 60 feet at the right-of-way line. The turnarounds will be designed and constructed in accordance with the International Fire Code for fire apparatus turnarounds. They'll be designated as no parking areas to allow for emergency vehicle access and turnaround.
Okay. This letter from the chief talks about a Knox lock, and I know we granted the variance for Grassmere, but I think what he's trying to propose as a compromise is do the knock box where only emergency vehicles could travel, through Grassmere to, I think, Shiloh Run. Have that gate there, kind of like what you see at the southern border of Hillsdale's at Dunkeith and Glenmont. It's a similar thing, and that way he would be okay with with, I guess, Alexandria Parkway being a cul-de-sac, and you wouldn't be hooking Alexandria and Shiloh together. I think you'd be putting Shiloh and Grassmere together. What's wrong with that?
If I'm simply adding a fire apparatus drive from the existing Grassmere to the cul-de-sac that we are showing on Shiloh, I still need a variance. I don't think that it was ever proposed that if we did put that in, that would be acceptable.
That's what that's what the chief is saying.
My understanding is they're just wanting that to go through. I didn't read it as if we did that, then this plan would be acceptable. I mean, if that's the case, then I'm misunderstanding the letter.
Yeah, he says, I'd like to suggest a connection with Grassmere as a primary option. He's saying, that's what I'd like to, that's my best thing as a fire chief. I would like to just have the road hook up. But he says the option solves all issues. But I understand that a cut-through traffic is a concern. So our added suggestion would be to install a gate dividing the streets. This can be unlocked by a fire department Knox lock. Therefore, only fire and police would be able to use this gate since it requires a Knox box key. The street can be maintained by city crews. The option works well in the city, Hilltop Apartments in South Main, for example. And like I said, I know Hills and Dales has this on its southern border. Its streets has through streets going, like Dunkeith goes straight through, but there's a gate there on the southern border with a Knox lock. So, and it wasn't proposed, I mean, this is his idea of a compromise, I guess, and I don't know what other board members think, but, I know I granted that variance on Grassmere. I voted for it, and I voted for the cul-de-sacs. But if you'll remember, we were given the letter from the chief at the meeting, and I'm looking at the map on my phone. I mean, this is like, and I'm trying to look, and I'm like, well, it doesn't look like it's any faster to me if you go through Grassmere and you cut through all those roads, or if you come off through Lancaster Gate. But this run data tells me that I'm not correct. Because when I look at the total time to get from East Hill and South Main, that intersection, to the end of Grassmere where the gate is, it's 3 minutes and 40 seconds. But if I have to go from East Hill and South Main to the end of Shiloh Run, where it is now, that's 4 minutes and 58 seconds. It's more than a minute. It's a minute and 18 seconds slower. So as a board member, you might say to me, a minute and 18 seconds, that's not a big deal. Well, anyone who's ever had to call an ambulance for themselves or a loved one will tell you, a minute and 18 seconds can feel like 45 minutes. And we can't just think about the people in the room here today. We got to think about the people who are going to be living in these neighborhoods years to come and how they would feel about that. So I'm more concerned now than I was in May because I've got this data that I didn't have before. And at that meeting, that letter was, kind of thrust upon us. And I know you weren't happy about it. I wasn't exactly happy about it either. But that's something we have to consider. So that's why I'm wondering why the Knox, it doesn't sound like you've given it much thought, the Knox lock or anything like that.
Just for a point of clarification, are you suggesting that if that road were to connect through and a gate were placed on there, that it would be acceptable to have the cul-de-sac on Alexandria Parkway? I mean, obviously, you probably can't even answer that because...
The applicant's can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The applicant's representative is correct. He still needs a variance for the length of the cul-de-sacs, regardless of the safety and EMS information.
Yeah, he would need a variance for Alexandria Parkway, and he would need one for Shiloh Run because it would, I guess it would be a cul-de-sac still. But I guess the question is if they were willing to accept that.
Well, are you suggesting that just be a fire access road or a publicly dedicated road all the way to Grassmere with a gate? See, I just got this letter yesterday, even though it was dated August 28th. So, I mean, I had no time to
that's
go back. I mean, and I understand.
The reason I brought it up to begin with.
And I appreciate that. But it seems like that these come at the last second.
Yeah, I understand. It was actually my suggestion that I didn't know if you'd seen it, because I was the one I think I sent an email
Yes, sir.
Sunday
I did.
saying, please send this to us.
Yes, I did receive it yesterday.
Because I remember what happened the last time, and I didn't, I know what it's dated, but, that's why I can't speak for anyone else here, but I have new concerns about granting this variance, even though I voted for it before because of this new information that the fire chief, they did this run data thing. But then the Knox box, he's saying he'd be okay with that. And that alleviates some of my concerns, my new concerns that I have. I don't know what anyone else thinks about it, but if we can shave a minute and 18 seconds and the fire chief is okay with it, what you worry about when you're sitting up here, and what the fire chief is worried about is, look, what happens when an emergency happens and some tragedy occurs, and maybe a minute and 18 seconds could have made a difference, and it's the kind of thing you just don't want to have on your conscience. So that's
understandably so.
Yeah. So I don't know what anybody else have any thoughts on this?
What the chief is suggesting, you create a connector road between the cul-de-sacs on Shiloh Run and Alexander Parkway. An improved connector road. Keep it improved. The city will maintain it. Put a Knox box gate there.
Are you-
Put it by a Knox box.
Are you referring between Grassmere and Shiloh?
Yeah, he's not clear about that. but when I
He's
look at
not,
the-
he's not saying between the two cul-de-sacs, he's saying between
Shiloh Run,
the dead end
that's
of
it, right?
Grassmere and the Shiloh Road extension.
I spoke
How many of
with,
you up there?
Yeah, what was
I
he?
did speak
These
with the
two.
chief.
This is Shiloh Run, right?
The small cul-de-sac is Shiloh Run,
Yeah.
and the
This is-
dead-end street over on the left-hand side of your page is Grassmere. He's asking to have a Knox, can I show him?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, you might have more information. Go ahead.
He's asking to place a gate here and have access through to Shiloh Run to be able to decrease the travel time coming from Main Street rather than all the way around through the subdivision. Not necessarily connecting these two pieces.
Access right now is Lancaster Gate over on this side, right?
Say again.
I was asking if access was to this side of the,
Access right now is
Yeah,
Lancaster
Lancaster
Gate and
Gate.
Chatham
Right.
Gate, coming off of East Hill, yeah.
right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fox, would you?
Yes, sir. And this was actually raised, in my notes, June 21st.
At the last meeting.
Well, it was, I'm not sure, at the meeting, it was after the meeting. My notes reflect June 21st that I had a conversation with an individual that said he represented AMC Lane Company and asked if there was anything that could be done to help reduce the chief's concern about the runtime. So I spoke with Fire Chief Bacon, and he stated just that if a gate with a Knox box could be placed at the end of Grassmere with a right-of-way, a dedicated road that wouldn't be blocked, that would reduce his concern with the runtime. Was that passed on to you about that?
I believe that was your attorney.
Okay. But the thing is, I didn't notice any of that in the new application, so that was
I wasn't aware that that was going to be an issue. I automatically assumed, since I received the variance not to connect to Grassmere, that would not be a topic of conversation this evening.
We're not here to hear that portion of the original application, correct? So the applicant's representative is correct. We're only here to hear the change in the radius of the cul-de-sac and revote or reconsider the length of the cul-de-sacs.
yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Is the chief aware of the change in the size of the radius?
I handed the plans into the city. I'm not positive if they got to the chief or were submitted.
We have to get past the point that the fire chief can suggest, recommend, or support something, but it has no bearing on the actual ordinances themselves. And the only one in front of us is the 600, or the length of the cul-de-sacs, with the change being the modification to the radius. Still keeping the two cul-de-sacs at the same length.
Yes, but we are going to present a little bit more supporting data as we continue in this meeting, basically associated with the land values and comparatively speaking, and hardships that would cause on the adjacent residents if we do not develop it in the manner that we have.
Land values are not a consideration for granting the variance. Sorry, that's just not a...
Decreasing adjacent land values, I would say, is a hardship.
Okay, well, I mean, we can entertain evidence they're going to present,
That's fine.
that will demonstrate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, with whatever evidence you want. I mean, we're happy to hear whatever you have to say about that.
That's all I had at this point.
What the chief thinks his suggestion weighs heavily on whether we allow the variance.
The owner has requested a table that, we'll have discussions with the fire chief and we'll come back with a different proposal.
You want to table it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I guess we'll make a motion to table. I think that's all we have to do then, if that's.
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, there's a motion to table. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from anybody else here? Anybody want to say anything about the motion to table? Go ahead, sir. Go ahead and state your name too first.
My name is Jim Aveni, A-V-E-N-I, with AMC Land Company. We have some discussion here so I can kind of explain to the group here why we're here, why we're tabling it, so that they understand our confusion in having to table it. Is we were unaware that we were revisiting the Grassmere connection because in our belief we had the variance granted to us. As such, we're coming to present evidence and your situation and how it affects your values as a hardship to the need for the cul-de-sac lots in order to complete the development as the community would want. And so because of the new evidence that showed up yesterday from the fire chief, revisiting the Grassmere connection as a alternative that we should consider, I believe, that's how it's being presented, that
Yeah.
we need to look at it and say, can we accept this and modify our plans accordingly to basically give you back the variance that's been granted?
Yeah, now, my take on this, and you tell me if I'm wrong, is they're just, because I don't work in City Hall, I'm a private citizen like you, but it sounds like there hasn't been a meeting of the minds between the chief and the neighborhood or the developer about, what might work. And maybe if the Knox box issue is hashed out, that might be a good compromise. Is that?
Well, there's been no communication, one way or the other. We get a letter right before the meeting, the day before. This is the second time it's happened to us.
Yeah.
I believe that we will need to, as the developer, pursue going to the chief and calling a meeting.
I would suggest that
potentially,
all parties
and
be proactive in this.
and
not
try to
wait.
get some kind of understanding of what they're willing to accept, so we can bring to you something that doesn't get blindsided on the day before.
Right.
For another time.
I see.
Because it's a waste of your time to be here, it's a waste of all these people's time to be here when we get thrown something on left field when we're just trying to put a development and be done with it.
To be fair, without having the chief doing a test run, was there a belief that having or not having this Knox box and gate at Grassmere would increase the runtime? I mean,
There was never a discussion.
I'm not discussion, I mean a concern.
The concern presented at the last time when we were denied, voted against, however you want to phrase it, was the equipment being able to turn around. That's what we were told, is that for a fire truck to back down the street to a turnaround was very difficult, and that the cul-de-sac was part of the problem, and that it wasn't big enough to get the big fire ladder or whatever to make the turn. So we did our research and we looked up the International Fire Code, thinking that the problem with the cul-de-sacs wasn't they were cul-de-sacs, obviously they're long and they're cul-de-sacs, but that the root of the chief's concern was the diameter to be able to turn his equipment around. So we came back with bigger cul-de-sacs, marked no parking, because the concern of, well, they don't want to move cars out of the way if someone's parked in the cul-de-sacs. We put no parking signs, fire lane, because we don't want anyone to get hurt. We don't want anyone to have a problem. But, you know, dead-end cul-de-sacs exist everywhere, and the whole purpose of this body is to look at this unique situation or specific situation and couch it against the one-size-fits-all rules that are played out in the code and try to adjust as necessary through variances and other things. Because if we just go back to just follow the rules and cul-de-sacs can't be more than 600 feet long, then, you know, there's nothing to talk about.
It's the fact that
I do believe that the purpose of, I'm sorry.
Sir, the chief in the May meeting, what is that? The chief in the May meeting, he made the concerns about the cul-de-sacs, but he also talked about run times. And I remember that because I specifically said I don't see a problem with run times when I look at a map. And now I'm finding that maybe I wasn't correct. So he did talk about run times too, in that, you know, as a concern. I understand what you're saying. You know, as an attorney with clients, I find when everybody's proactive and just bugs everybody else, things get done. That's how I have to be with my clients sometimes. That's how sometimes how other lawyers have to be with me because I get busy. People just got to be proactive and contact each other and try to work this out. And if you have to come back for another variance for the Knox box, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if you would, because it would be considered a cul-de-sac or not. I'm not sure. But I would try to work something out, and hopefully you don't have to come back here, and if you do, it would be a very easy proceeding. As far as us granting variances, I mean, we grant them, but I take it very seriously because, this is a significant deviation from the ordinance. And these ordinances are put in place by elected officials. We are not elected officials. We're appointed. We're volunteers. So when we do a variance, you're asking us to take what an elected official put in place and to change it. And lots of times, what you're asking us to do is something that you should, the elected official, you should be asking the elected official to do. Now, I'm not saying that's the case here, but I'm just telling you that's the kind of burden, we're all dealing with this stuff. But if we'll vote on the motion to table. If anybody else wants to speak, that's fine. But hopefully this can be worked out. And I'd like, I personally, I can't make anybody do anything, but I'd like to see people talk more about the Knox box issue and try to get it worked out. Just my, it'd be nice if that could be done, and we would.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
The cul-de-sac radius and so forth is one issue. That's not a big deal. That can be handled. The reason for the connector and the secured connector, so that people can't use it as a cut-through, is because these people all have a vested interest over there. Most of them live there. They don't live in Mickey Mouse homes. They live in pretty decent houses. To be able to fire down there, the fire department has two issues. Number one, save lives. Number two, extinguish the fire. And to minimize the damage to attendant homes and so forth. If you ever saw a fire department in action in a big fire like that in a decent home, you've got a lot of apparatus. And it had something down there, we'd have Plain Township helping us. We'd probably have other people coming in for assistance. You'd have a lot of apparatus. You can't turn those around in a cul-de-sac and get them out. You've got to have someplace else to get them out and rotate them around. That's why this connector is necessary. Somebody get out. There's two reasons for it. That's one reason. The other reason to have an ambulance go through there and save, what, a minute and a half?
minute 18.
That's a lot of time. There's a good reason to have that connector, other than the cul-de-sac. And it behooves all of these people here to realize that their homes are important to the fire department. And whatever the fire department does is with the idea in mind of protecting property and lives. That's all they're there for.
I understand that. I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Sir, go ahead.
John Spera, 1380 SPERA, 1380 Shiloh Run. For our benefit, could you read this letter that you're talking about so that we know the issue that's
Is there a
involved?
copy? There's a copy there. Go ahead and read it, please. Yeah. I read part of it, but go ahead. The run data is on page 2, I believe. Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Osborne.
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. I am concerned that we're looking at this again. It's the same deal. Just because they've widened the cul-de-sacs, we still have the main issue here. We have streets that are far, and you mentioned this, Mr. Zollinger, far in excess of the city code. Elected officials do not put this in place by their own desire. They have experts, they have land use planners. This 600 feet, as I recall, when we passed this zoning code back in '03, came from Stark County subdivision regulations. So it's a very widely used benchmark. So I think you're being distracted by, oh, okay, we increased the cul-de-sacs from 50 to 60 feet. I believe in following laws that are very soundly arrived at, scrutinized, accepted, and have been in place for decades. So to waive this requirement, you just will strike it from our code then, because you're starting down this path. They're already far in excess of the 600, again, as Mr. Zollinger has pointed out. So I believe in following our laws that have proven to work. And as Mr. Bacon points out, there are many other reasons why we limit the lengths of these streets with cul-de-sac turnarounds. As far as the comment about it reducing traffic, I don't see how it reduces traffic, because people who go down that street to get back out have to go back out the same way they came in. So you're doubling the traffic is the way I look at it. So it's not a substantial change or a significant change from what they asked for earlier. So I think you should vote to turn it down now, and there should be a significant change in their plan here. We're still looking at, what is it, 1,780 feet length on Shiloh Run and 1,625 on Alexandria. How are you going to deal with that? Are you just going to be distracted by, a bigger cul-de-sac, and we're just going to forget they're far? Shiloh runs 3 times the code. So that's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, there's a motion to table on the floor, that work that's pending right now. So just so everybody knows, that's really what we're looking to address at this point. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead and give your name first.
Yes, my name is Charles Rigler, R-I-E-G-L-E-R, 1419 Hanover Court, Southeast, Canton, Ohio, 44709. I'm here as a resident of the Monticello allotment, and what I'm hearing is this community made a decision. We were involved. It was a democratic process for Phase 8. Do you want a bunch of little lots, extra streets, or do you want to have larger estate lots? The community agreed that it was in the best interest to have larger, fewer lots, less traffic, and that's our concern as residents. I'm not hearing that you are opposed to that proposal, to make larger estate lots versus a bunch of small lots. That's what the community desires. You've heard there are already cul-de-sac streets longer in existence in that allotment than we're proposing. We're not extending cul-de-sacs by 1,700 feet. I believe I heard one is 100 feet and the other one's like 400 feet. And right now, nobody can turn around in there because they're just dead end. They're dead end, because I've been down there. They're dead end into grass. So if I want to go down there and turn around, I have to go into the grass. So am I clear that you are really not opposing the estate lot concept, which would require cul-de-sacs, that you are merely concerned with some safety issues to make sure those are addressed? Am I correct in that assumption?
The item before the board is whether these cul-de-sac, the variance for these cul-de-sacs and the length of the cul-de-sac roads, whether we should grant a variance for that. That's all we're slated to decide. These other issues with the Knox box are being kicked around as possible compromise alternatives, but that's the issue we have before us.
Whether these two cul-de-sacs connect or whether they don't, this developer has complete control over the size of those buildable lots. Completely. So whether he builds big homes or small homes is up to him. How he affects your property values is up to him.
But in order to have those lots, you can't connect them because that requires a lot more infrastructure. And to put smaller houses, a lot more roads and a lot more lots.
You're talking about a connection between two ends of two cul-de-sacs. That's it.
So you're not...
I have no opposition to anyone, whether this developer, I don't want to get into property values. This is not why we're here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I mean, I think it's a beautiful neighborhood. We're not sitting here trying to change the character of the neighborhood. That's not what we're here to address. We're here to address length of cul-de-sacs. And again, there's a motion to table that I think is still pending. So, but go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I believe the rationale for tabling is that the applicant wishes to modify the application from what we have right now, and it would be unfair perhaps for them to do it on the fly to continue when it appears without this type of modification that it wouldn't be approved. And then you're looking at a denial and then another 6 months.
Yeah, I think we're trying to avoid another 6-month debacle. So, that being said, I mean, you can talk, this is not really a free public speaks forum, it's more of a judicial forum. I try to keep us on message, and that's why I keep reminding you guys, or everybody here, that, right now the motion to table is what we're talking about. Go ahead, sir.
Tom Serra, 1535 Alexandria Parkway, Monticello. I serve on the Planning Commission, so I know what the time you guys put in, and I appreciate it. Two things. Chuck Osborne does not live in Monticello. Just want to make that clear. Another item, 1 minute and 18 seconds, 78 seconds. How long will it take the fire department to unlock that knockbox.
The rundown, if you look at it, it takes that into account. They simulated how long it would take to unlock the knockbox, open it up, drive the truck through. So the time that I gave you takes into account the time it would take to deal with that.
Okay, please make sure that is correct, because,
Yeah, you can look at the letter. I mean, they say that in the letter. I mean,
Okay, seconds.
yeah,
Okay.
they break that out.
okay. Another concern is on the planning commission, one of the things that are in our ordinances is that we review on a final plat is two major items. The appropriate use and value of property within and adjacent to the area will be safeguarded. That's one of the concerns we have with the residents that showed up tonight. If it does become smaller lots, they're gonna be smaller value homes, and we're concerned about that. I know you guys say it's secondary, but it's really not. The other thing is the development will result in a harmonious grouping of buildings within the proposed development and in relationship to existing and proposed use on adjacent properties. We have very nice homes in this area and we're proud of it. We want to keep the integrity of these homes. Again, smaller lots, if you connect those two roads, could hurt the value of our homes. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir.
What we have here basically is a safety issue. We have to approach it that way.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Julia M. Sandrew, S-A-N-D-R-U. Do you need an address? It's 1327 Alexandria Parkway, Southeast North Canton. I am currently the last home on Alexandria Parkway on the east side of the street. There is a makeshift cul-de-sac there. 3 years ago, the North Canton Emergency Medical Services came out to my home. They did not say, sorry, we can't come because we can't turn around. They were there when I needed them. And then within the last 3 years, North Canton City Police came out to my home. They were there because I needed them. They did not say, I'm sorry, we can't come because we can't turn around. They were there with the small cul-de-sac that we have now. Enlarging it and continuing it all the way around will make it much easier for them to access the homes at the end of Alexandria Parkway and on Shiloh. So I am very appreciative for their services. It means a lot to me. I just want to see this done so it can better serve them and us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody? Yes, sir.
Frank Charnovic, C-H-A-R-N-O-V-I-C. I live on 1575 Pilgrim's Knob. I am one of them that has a double lot. My lot behind me I purchased, it dead ends right next to that lady's on Alexandra. Talk about safety, talk about turnaround. I've had several times, my house personally, ambulance come up through there. They've had no problem turning around. They've had no problem getting there. I've personally seen big car traveler loaders come in there. They're just probably the same size as your fire trucks. I've seen big, on a weekly basis, buses come in, obviously. I've seen on a regular basis, big garbage trucks come in there. Nobody has a problem turning around in that thing. And I thought they all had reverse in them to start with. And it's not like they're going down a 90-degree turn where they have to get to someplace, where they got to slow down to nothing. And I personally, today, stopped at Hillbeach East Hill rather, at the light on Main Street. I drove that the speed limit. I stopped there because that's the way the fire departments, police, or anybody else would have to come if you open up the other way. I used to be a former polymer chemist for 40 years. I know a lot about standards.
Sorry, sir.
A former, you used to be a former.
A polymer chemist for 40 years. I used to do a lot of standardizations. I took one of my timers, National Bureau of Standards, certified. It took me about the same time, within a couple seconds, to go if you open up the other way or go through Alexandra Parkway. And now I wasn't even in the development that way because it's blocked, so it would have took another few seconds to get there. And none of those roads down there going the other way are nearly as wide as our development. A lot easier to get there. Personally, I've seen it. Personally, I've had the response get there. You're hearing from people there and had it already. This isn't somebody guessing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have, again, right now, what we have pending is a motion to table. Does anybody else wish to speak? I'm trying to be pretty liberal with allowing people to speak, but again, our issue is motion to table right now. Anything else? Okay, there's a motion and a second to table. Any discussion from the board? If not, I'll have the roll call.
Mr. Bacon?
Yes.
Mr. Mahalson?
Yes.
Ms. Clevenger?
Yes.
Mr. Zollinger?
Yes. Because the motion to table is passed, I would just encourage all the parties to actively, proactively talk to each other. I'm not saying that to cast doubt or blame on anybody, but let's try to get something worked out. And I'm hopeful that it can be. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'll need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Hey, guys.
He wants Grassmere here.
All those in favor? Yeah.
So I'm
Did you get that?
confused.